Good evening to you all, and welcome to the June 29 Town Garner Council Work Session. So our process will be slightly different this evening. We dispense with some of the preliminary stuff that we do at our regular meeting, as you will note. So I'll call the meeting to order this time, and I'm going to ask our Assistant Town Manager, Miss Ashley Knox, who's with us this evening covering the meeting, if she will, to call the roll.
No, she got a nice promotion right quick. You didn't tell us about that promotion yet.
I'll go ahead and get my mistake out there to start with, so you have a right to make a mistake. Our Assistant Town Clerk, thank you for being here. It's not.
Mayor Marshburn.
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Here.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
I'm here.
Councilmember Vance.
Here.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you, council members, for being here. And for those of you who are here to present this evening, we appreciate you being here as well. Council, the next item is the adoption of the agenda. And before I ask you to formally do that, I do want to offer up one addition, closed session. We already have one closed session scheduled, as you will note, but I'm going to recommend that we also include a closed session to confer with council on a legal issue. So with that change noted on the closed session, unless anybody else has an addition, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. Any questions? There are none. All in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Is any opposition? No, and there is none. Okay, following right along with our agenda, I believe we're going to recognize Mr. Reginald Bowie, our senior planner, who's going to guide us through the first item on our agenda this evening. Good evening, Mr. Bowie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Good evening, sir.
See the PowerPoint.
Is it at the bottom?
I don't.
Well, you can
I need to minimize
that, and that should bring up. What is the one in the bottom there of the screen?
I don't see it, sir.
Well, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor,
I have a hard copy. I just don't.
Okay.
I have a hard copy.
Okay, I assume council members, and I forgot to bring my laptop, but you guys have it properly on there, is that right?
what we can do, Mr. Mayor, is maybe flip-flop the items. Ms. Howell go first. Oh.
Here comes Mr. IT himself.
Get used to some of these new tools we have. Share OneDrive.
Some of us are getting more used to it than others, and I'm part of the others, I think.
let's.
I was going to say, if you think you need a little time to work that out.
Okay.
Is yours in the public?
The boy can go load it onto the driveway.
Okay. Well, I will now welcome Ms. Maury Howe, Downtown Development Manager, for a presentation. It relates to GA alcohol ordinance, and if the presentation is ready, Ms. Howe, we will hear from you now.
One moment. Thank you for your patience.
Okay?
Okay. There we go. Okay, good evening. Thank you
Good
for your
evening.
patience. I don't have a presentation tonight. I just wanted to pull this map up for reference. I am here tonight to speak with you about the changes to the town's alcohol ordinance as it regards to downtown Garner events. The reason we're making these changes is when the Garner Area Historical Society came in and made some changes in order to allow alcohol at their events, we recognized that we wanted to clean up the existing language to make sure it matched with our actual alcohol policies on the ground for downtown events. So working with the town lawyer, we have made some changes, and we are asking the council to consider making the changes proposed in the council packet. Basically what that would do is allow alcohol to be sold by vendors at downtown Garner Association sponsored events. So that will include things like the events that we organize, like the food truck rodeo, and it will also include events that we partner with other organizations with, such as we're looking to do a monthly night market in downtown. So that will be included in the study area, and that would allow people that come to these events to purchase alcohol both from vendors that are there specifically for the event, as well as at businesses that sell alcohol in the downtown Garner area. So that would cover Shady's, Aristotle Spirits, Full Bloom. And so what we have before you, this is the area that we have used the language from to outline sort of this area. You know, this is an established study area that kind of covers all of our downtown area. So anything that we were to do in this area would fall under, you know, downtown events on this. And basically one of the reasons we have it such a larger area is that it will allow us to have some more flexibility on where we have events in the future. So that's basically kind of what we're focusing on. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if Terry or John would like to share anything as well, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Howe. Questions, council, regarding this information? We'll start on my left over here with Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is a good time to update this because we've got a lot going on down there, especially with the new venue that opened up this weekend. I had a chance to ride by there, and it does help grow in downtown, and it'll kind of keep us consistent across the board, and it'll help that downtown area also. And it's just good business for everybody and got good control of it. So I think it's a great idea, and I would support it.
Okay, Ms. Singleton?
Maury, in the past, when we've done the food truck rodeo, we just waived it for like a date and a time frame. Have we not? I think that's what we've done in the past, haven't we?
Yeah, I think there was some language in there before. I don't know that we've always followed the exact policy, but yeah, we basically have just said this is a downtown event, therefore it's covered under whatever the language had been that was established, I think, maybe going back as far as 2010 for events.
Okay,
So.
all right.
If I could clarify, there was a resolution that basically allowed one event per month during certain months, but it was decided like that wasn't enough flexibility. You might want to have two events or a Saturday, Sunday kind of event in the same month. And this would, and I'm not sure that they ever adhered to the specific times that were in that. It was like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So that resolution didn't really allow for a daytime event on a weekend.
I think that originally the resolution that was done in 2010 was meant to allow for alcohol to be sold at the previous concert event. So that's what it was based on. And then we just never updated it once we kind of started changing our events. So this will ultimately give us more flexibility because it doesn't highlight any specific times. The one thing I will note is that it says if it's a downtown Garner event or sponsored event where the street is not closed, that event can be approved by a permit signed by the town manager. But if we have an event where we close the street, like Main Street, then it will come back to you all for approval. So that means if we have a food truck rodeo, you'll see me back here saying, we're planning to have a food truck rodeo, we're planning to close the street. So we would like your permission to have the sale of alcohol that day. And one of the reasons that we did that was because we already have to go to the railroad several months in advance. So we figure for those events where we close the street, we typically have enough time to come and let you guys know. So that's kind of the difference between the two different types of events, street closure versus non-street closure.
I also want to note, just to make sure everybody knows, that this area also includes the multi-purpose field behind the rec center. Just so y'all know that area.
I probably should also mention includes Garner Rec Park as one of the areas. And one of the reasons that we've asked for that to be included, just even though it's all included, when we've done events at Garner Rec Park, we think it's a great place to have an event because it's got a playground, close to the dog park, access to bathrooms. But we've had people say, why can't we have a beer vendor here or something? Now, I don't anticipate in the immediate future we're going to be doing much of that, but it's just nice to have the option. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to make this as flexible as possible for all future events. But just know I'm not planning to start having tons of events over there where we're doing that.
Okay, and I think you've already answered mine.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, thank you, appreciate it.
Answer my question. This still doesn't obviate the need to, I guess, get council approvals on street closures in the area.
Correct. Yeah,
Yep.
so if we're having an event where we close Main Street, that's the only street I would really be planning to close. We would come to council to ask for
Okay.
that.
All right. Ms. Behringer? Anything?
I just have a little concern about it including Garner Rec Park because of the playground. Not that I would oppose it, but that does give me a little concern. How often did you say that you might do something there?
I have no plans to do anything there right now. So
Right.
I have no plans to do anything at Garner Rec Park right now.
Okay.
I'm just was using the example of when we had the pop-up market in the past, we had citizen feedback that they would be interested in seeing something like that. I don't know that that means that we absolutely would, no matter what. I'm just letting council know that there has been feedback that there has been interest in that. So I think the Downtown Garner Association would weigh that, knowing, your concerns. You're obviously part of the board, so you'd be able to, voice that as well. And we can take any of those concerns. So even though it's included, it doesn't mean that we're going to automatically allow alcohol at any and all events. We just would like the flexibility to, if the appropriate situation came along.
We'll count on you to use good discretion as you're doing it. Mr. Dellinger?
Yeah, for public clarification, I like the way it's written. It's very constrained in that it still is going through the Downtown Garner Association. It's not anybody having any event automatically can bring alcohol. And if there's another event outside of DJ or the Historic Society or the Performing Arts Center, they'd still have to come to council to get that approval. So I think it's a good balance of getting vetted in a couple of different ways for events. And so just don't want people thinking they can start having events and bring alcohol downtown. So thank you for all your work on this, Mari.
Okay, Mr. Vance?
No questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless council has other questions, my understanding is, I guess we're asking to be considered to maybe put this on the consent agenda if there's approval here. We won't be voting on it tonight, I guess, right? Okay.
Sounds good.
Council satisfied with that as it come back to us on the 6th of July? All right. I don't think we need to formally vote on that, do we? We'll vote on it on the 6th.
No. I mean, and of course, if you have questions in between, today and the 6th, feel free to contact me or Mari.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sure enough. Okay, are we ready now for item number 1 on the agenda, gentlemen?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Once again, I think we're ready to go now. So tonight I want to introduce UDO 21-02 car wash facilities near MF1, MF2 zoning. General case information, the applicant is Mr. Nate Bueller of Cambridge Properties Incorporated. The reason for the request is that Cambridge Properties has filed a rezoning request to rezone and develop approximately 9.5 acres on the south side of Caddy Road and US 401 for commercial development, which would include a car wash use. The proposed car wash site lies within the required 500-foot buffer from R40 zoning on the west of US 401 and from MF2 zoning along Caddy Road. The applicant is requesting to reduce the buffer distance for single-family districts and remove the buffer for multifamily districts. Our current ordinance states that no car wash facility, including any areas for vehicular use, shall be located within 500 feet of any existing residential zoning district. The proposed text by the applicant states that no car wash facility, including any areas for vehicular use, shall be located within 500 feet of any of the following zoning districts: R40, R20, R15, R12, and R9. And this will be found in Article 5, Use Regulations, Sections 5.3 C 9D. As a note, as proposed, this text amendment would also remove any car wash buffer from the multifamily districts MF1 and MF2. If approved, this text would allow car wash facilities no closer than 300 feet of the following zoning districts: R40, R20, R15, R12, and R9. The buffer would not apply to any MF1 or MF2 district. Staff recommends that the Town Council conduct a public hearing on August 17th, 2021 to get public input. Afterwards, the request will go to the Planning Commission for review along with staff suggested ordinance language. Are there any questions?
Okay, I'll start down on this end. Mr. Vance, sir, do you have anything?
Not at this moment.
Okay, coming around, Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, I have a question. Do they not have any other remedy available to them to get a reduction in that buffer?
Well, current ordinance will not allow it, so I don't.
I guess I'll ask it. Do they have another way of just submitting a site plan and then coming to council for a change? I've seen it all the time. They ask for reductions in buffers. They come to us all the time. Don't they have that option for this?
They have not submitted a site plan yet. They're planning to do it, but they have not submitted any actual plans for us to review and have that discussion.
Right. So they want to reduce the buffer for the entire town, not just their own particular project.
Correct. If this is approved, this would apply townwide. In some previous development projects, we have applicants request a reduction in like landscaping and perimeter buffers. This is different.
Yes.
This is more of a setback. So there is no way to get around that setback buffer unless there's a text change to reduce that buffer.
Yeah, that is a little crazy to me. Just like for one specific site remedy to change it for the whole town. I'll pass to Ms. Behringer.
Well, I have some concerns about it being, for just changing our ordinances for the whole town, just for one request, but that's all.
Okay, yeah, I'll reserve my comments. Mr. Singleton.
Reginald, the buffer, the 500 foot or 300 or whatever it may be, buffer from what? The property line to the next property line?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's 500 foot, it's from, well, wherever it may be. It's got to be 500-foot buffer to the property line of the residential property.
Yes, sir.
But this would eliminate any property line between MF1 and MF2.
Yes.
Reason I think about this is I was on the council many, many years ago when we approved first the long-term apartments up on Highway 70, and then we did the car wash, Autoville. The other car wash had been there previously, and that backs right up to Greenbrier, which is a residential property. And I think the 500-foot buffer came out from that eventually. One of the issues with car washes that we discussed at that time is vacuum cleaners. Now, Autoville shuts off and their vacuum cleaners, where they are, but if you have a car wash there and people can vacuum their car in the middle of the night, it makes a lot of noise. So that's the issue with, if you're having no buffer with multifamily, unless you're gonna have time limits. So we have to remember that because, and those vacuum cleaners aren't so loud, but if 5 people are out there at one time, I'm just saying it makes noise. I mean, it makes more noise than the car wash. As much noise as the car wash, I'll rephrase that. So that's one of the issues we have with the Greenbrier situation, but Autoville was great to work with because they work with them, they close at 8 or 8:30, whatever time it gets dark. So that's just a concern I have about no buffer. If you back the car wash up to an apartment, an MF1 or MF2 property, and they're out there on the edge of the property, and you know how they do car washes nowadays, and these vacuum cleaners, they got a line right up. And so that's the concern I would have in backing up something that can make noise in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton. Mr. Matthews?
No questions right now, sir.
Okay. And I think it's already been expressed, but I guess, as Mr. Singleton mentioned, there was a reason for the 500-foot buffer. I don't guess it was arbitrary, but, yeah, it seems like maybe a more extreme thing to have to change all of this for the rest of the town to satisfy this. I think I understand why they're asking for it out there, but I guess there's no way around that. But at any rate, the request here really is to, we don't resolve it tonight, is to open this up for a public hearing and hear from others who may have concerns or may have support before we ultimately approve it, I guess. Am I right on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, we haven't seen a site plan, but if you had a lot and the car wash is at the front and there's empty space at the back, but the buffer comes off the back of the property line, I'm just, I reckon it would have to come before staff. I'm just thinking, I mean, if you keep the vacuums and the car wash at the front and there's, 100 foot in the back for parking cars to drive through, is that included, can you include that in the buffer? I'm just sitting here trying to think out loud. You keep the noise away, noise toward the front, I reckon toward, this is going to be on 401 and Caddy Road, I believe it's proposed, and this, all that's at the front of that. How do you buffer it on the side? I don't know. I reckon that's some planning folks to come up with.
And I'm at a loss as to why you'd remove the buffer completely for multifamily.
Yeah.
That just is, that's why I know typically you go to a public hearing and talk about this stuff, but
Yeah,
I can't even see you wanting to even do that.
Okay. Any other comments, observations? So, council, are you willing to go ahead and set a public hearing on this matter for August the 17th, and it'll come back before us, conduct a public hearing? Do you assume the applicant will be here for that, I would suppose?
I would recommend if you vote to have a meeting, then I would call him and tell him he would need to be here to defend his application.
Yeah, right. And other than publicizing it, I guess we don't have to notify specific people within a certain radius on something like this, is that right?
No, because it's townwide.
Right.
I mean, there'll be notice of the public hearing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, Reginald's bringing this forward as a result of the request from Cambridge Properties, I guess. But at any rate, I guess council can, I guess it could refuse to hear it, but I think the proper thing to do would be to go ahead and set the public hearing and receive what other additional information can be brought forward before we vote on this.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
I mean, it would require a motion and a second and a vote. I actually don't even, it's hard to imagine there even being a motion. I think they just need to go back and try again to save them time to go through the process of setting the hearing, having the hearing, planning commission, come back to council. They're going to save themselves more time if they just go back to the drawing board at the very beginning. That multifamily no buffer,
Yeah, that's
to even come to us with that is a little, it's audacious. So that's my comment.
Okay,
I'm gonna say this, years ago, staff was working on a bunch of overlay districts. And it was on 7401 Highway 50, Timber Drive, a couple of other areas. And it banned car washes from all those roads. And one of my colleagues in the council said, if you don't put them there, where in the heck are you expecting to put them? He said, you want them on Vanderbilt Springs Road? You want them on 5th Avenue or 7th Avenue? Do you want them on Mablesboro Road? I said, did y'all think this out first? I had no trouble with the 401, but I have the concern with, 300 feet is a good, that's 100 yards of residential property. I'm okay with that. But no buffer for multifamily that's not gonna work. I'm sorry. If you can be out there with the car wash and vacuum, that's just, Mr. Dellinger's right, and they need to punt and start over. That's what I would recommend. If you need that in the form of a recommendation or a motion, or just say, no, you need to start over.
let me just see if there's anybody else wants to comment at this point in time. I'm sensing council's displeasure with the proposal in front of us, and perhaps would leave you with some other alternative to get back and see what further alternatives there are. I don't know if alternatives is the right word. Go ahead, Mr. Bamford, I recognize you, sir.
If this moves forward tonight, then staff would do research. We would look to see what other communities are doing. And so we would look to see what the proposal, how it compares to what other towns are doing. So if this moves forward, we would do additional research. Present that as the process moves forward.
Then it would come back to this council with your recommendation, and then this council would refer it back to the planning commission. Is that right?
That's correct. And if it continues to move forward, staff would draft language probably different than what's proposed in the application.
Well, I believe we definitely need a motion if we want to move it forward. If
Mr.
we
Mayor, if I may make a
decide
comment.
not to.
I appreciate that offer and what will happen, but we already know that we don't want no buffer for the multifamilies. And so does it matter what other municipalities are doing if we know that we do not want to have a situation where there's no buffer?
Well, it wouldn't be a no buffer, it would be just a diminishing of the.
We've got no buffer for the multifamily.
Multifamily, zero buffer.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
If we voted to move it forward and let staff instruct them that we've got an issue with that, so they know right out of the gate there's going to be issues there with no buffer with multifamily, and I share with my colleagues on that. Move it forward and let it run through the process, but let them make them aware. Is that something staff can do? There's going to be an issue if they bring it before us with no buffer with multifamily, so they know right out of the gate they need to fix that before they come up here. But let it do its due process.
Mr. Manager, yes.
Yeah, if you desire, Mr. Treason.
Okay, yes, I noticed Mr. Triesenberg is with us. So, Mr. Triesenberg, we will hear from you, sir, for any further information you want to share.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to note, I think David has done a good job of saying, that there is the process that we can work through. There are other options for us to go back and research. how to approach these issues differently based on the feedback you're giving us tonight. I will note that when we did have some preliminary conversations with the applicant, I think their approach was, in thinking about it, was that quite often apartment complexes and some of these other developments have a car wash actually internal to them. So, you know, granted, it's probably not to the scale of a commercial car wash, but that was kind of their mode of thinking that there wasn't as much incompatibility as you all have pointed out that there would be. So again, just wanted to throw that out there, that these are all things, whether it's no buffer or a buffer, those are all things that we can explore as the process moves forward if you decide that you want to do that.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Triesenberg?
I just have one question. So if it were something internal, isn't that something that they could come to the town with a special use permit to get some type of exception for that? Like that's my biggest problem is the gunshot town-wide change they're asking for what there is a very specific use or a very specific site. And it's hard for me to believe there's not a site level remedy or accommodation or exception that can be made. And if they don't have anything to present for us to do that against, then maybe they need to present that as part of a site plan and have a conversation with that. But if a full UDO text amendment is a lot for one project.
So I would have to defer to Terry on some of the legal specifics, but when you have a use buffer, such as the one that's listed as a additional requirement, it is not something that you can condition away. You could ask, I guess, for a variance, but I'm not sure exactly how that would work. In this particular case, but it really almost amounts to a use variance because it is a use standard. So Terry, I don't know if you have anything to add for that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, my thought was, as a dimensional standard, they could apply for a variance, but it's, in some respects, a self-created hardship, you know, unless they can show some specific site conditions. But it does play into, this is particularly attached to this type of use as opposed to just any lot in that district. So, you know, we can do some additional research on looking at that. But again, you know, a variance would be a site-specific type analysis done in a quasi-judicial proceeding. What they're proposing is basically to give this as of right for all car washes in, you know, all new ones going forward in the town.
Well, let me ask this. So you're sitting here and you're reading it. It says they're going to file, let's see, they filed a conditional rezoning CZ 2104 to rezone the 9.5 acre tract. I don't know how this 9.5 acre tract lays out, but to be sure they can put it so it's so many feet away from the multifamily. I mean, it says it's within the 450 feet. And I don't know how they have to lay this out. It sounds like to me that all you got to do is change it 50 feet to meet the existing ordinance. It's like to me that ought to be able to change it. That's Gray's opinion. I hadn't seen what they proposed and talked with y'all about. But we're not talking about it's within 200 feet. It's within 450 feet, which is within 50 feet of what's planned. Or excuse me, what's currently in place. And again, we put that in place because of, I mean, you go to Autobell and go to Greenbrier, there's no 500-foot buffer. There's probably hardly 500 foot between the car wash, and I'm not knocking Autobell because we approved it and they work with the neighborhood. But there's probably not 500 feet between Autobell and the house behind it. So that's what I'm saying. That's why we put it in on purpose, so it would be away from residential properties. Does it need to be less? Maybe it needs to be 400? Okay. Maybe it doesn't. But as Mr. Dellinger noted, they want us to go down to 300 townwide. So you got a 9.5 acre tract. That's a lot of square footage. You know, it's 43,000 square foot per acre. So we're talking 400 and something thousand square feet. To be sure they can lay out and figure out how to get far enough away. But anyway.
Yes, Mr. Manager.
Just for clarification, I may be a little confused, but, so the buffer is one issue, but I just want to clarify that it's also the zoning issue of separation, so it's the property line would still be adjoining or separated by a street, it sounds like. So wouldn't that, beyond the buffer, that would disqualify it also, right? Planning staff? So you can't move unless you have another lot in between. So it's more than just the buffer, right?
So the proposed site is within about 350 feet of R40 zoning, and it's within about 425 feet of multifamily 2 zoning. So it's conflicting. So the closest point to
The
R40 is
closest
about.
property line, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, it sounds like you can't put a car wash there. That's what it sounds like.
So I'll just pose sort of I guess, as a hypothetical question. If the council doesn't move to follow this recommendation and schedule this for a public hearing, I guess that doesn't obviate the planning to consider this matter further, or has it become a dead issue? I guess I'll ask Mr. Jones that question.
We could do this. No public hearing. We're not scheduling a public hearing. If staff wants to do some legwork, and y'all probably got plenty of other things you can probably spend time doing than this, but if you want to spend some legwork, that's fine. But like Ms. Barron said, it don't matter what other towns are doing. We already said we don't want the buffer, no buffer between multifamily. So it doesn't matter what Raleigh or Cary or Fuquay or Apex is doing. We've already stated that clearly. So, you want to see what other people are doing, but we've kind of made it clear. I'm here when we had the issue before, and I have no trouble with that. And then you say, where can you put car wash? Well, my gosh, go down the next lot and put it when it's not as close. There's places to put it. Anyway, this is, just think, a couple of years ago, we had rezoning before us at the corner of New Rand Road and Highway 70 to put a convenience store that had a car wash and vacuum cleaners that backed right up to a residential neighborhood. And what did we do? We didn't rezone it.
Denied it.
We denied it. And that was one of the reasons.
Okay, I think we can bring this to some conclusion. So, I'm sensing from what I'm hearing from council that there is not support for moving this forward per the recommendation that has been brought here. So I'm supposing we don't need to take a vote on that unless there's a motion not to approve. And then that will leave it up to planning, as Mr. Singles and others have suggested, to I guess determine what further consideration you want to give to this by way of investigation or whatever. And then it would come back to us at a future date. But obviously, the applicant should know and will know the results of this hearing, which indicates that this council at this time, based on what it has, is not inclined to approve that kind of a request.
We'll inform them in the morning.
Okay, is that all we need at this point, Ms. Attorney?
Yes, basically, if you don't advance it to a public hearing, then it's de facto, I guess, been denied. And then I was just looking, I don't see anything that says they can't submit an alternative proposal. They may have to apply for that again. My understanding, there's a filing fee associated with these text amendments.
Okay, so I think that would be the proper course of action, Reginald and David and Mr. Triesenberg, to take what the council, what you've heard from council tonight in terms of the concerns about this, and decide along with the applicant if it's worth pursuing in some other form or fashion, and bringing that information back. Okay?
Thank you.
Point of clarification, just with the attorney. So they could still pursue it under the current application. They wouldn't have to refile because we haven't actually acted on it and denied it. They can still go back under their same application and work with staff and come back again.
Yeah, I haven't had that situation here before, so I defer to planning on how they've treated that in the past. If there have been issues where council has declined to go to a public hearing. And then I guess it would depend on how related it is to this or whether it's a completely new proposal.
Usually, if we've not moved forward to the point of having to advertise, we will go ahead and basically refund the application fee. So in this case, if they did want to come back with something different, substantially different, that would address some of the concerns, we'd probably give it a new case number, but essentially for this fee.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Triesenberg, will give you clear guidance in your department?
Yes, sir. That's just what we needed.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. So, okay, I believe that covers all the public items on our agenda. Am I missing anything? Maybe, even though it's not listed, council, maybe before I ask you to go into closed session, we can sort of do a round robin with council reports. It won't take too long to do that, I don't believe. And so I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Behringer, if she has anything she'd like to report.
Yes, sir. I attended the ribbon cutting for Aristotle Spirits on Friday, was it? Yeah. And that was it was a very impressive and a good addition to the area. It's amazing to see what can be done with a vision. So glad to see that come aboard. And also, I attended the ribbon cutting for the Omegas of Raleigh on Saturday afternoon, and that was very enjoyable. I'm glad that they have a presence in our town now, and I look forward to seeing what happens with them working with the community.
Okay, and since you ended on that, I may skip to Mr. Vance, since he had been asked to fill in there. I did have the privilege of going over and touring the building. I don't know when I'd been in the building before, but obviously they've done, it looks like substantial renovation on that. And so, Mr. Vance, anything you care to report on that further and or some other matters? Anything else?
Yes, as Councilwoman Behringer said, it was a very good opening for the Omegas of Raleigh, and they have done a beautiful job with the building on 1004 Vandora Springs Road. It's a joint facility where activities can take place there, such as banquets, wedding receptions, on and on, office meetings and things of that nature. It's something to take a look at. It was an event that was well attended, and it was well done. It was well done.
Very good.
And since I have the floor, I'll go ahead and say something about the Human Resources Committee. We've continued on with the interviews of applicants. We're still going through that process, and we will continue that process this week and possibly even next week to look at the various applicants to fill the current openings.
Thanks, sir. Yes, thanks for your work here. Mr. Dellinger, well, I'm that side of
I didn't get a chance to get to my email, but it's for the town manager. I got a message from a constituent about the sidewalk between Lowe's Food and Hearth Drive on the guardrail. I can send the pictures, but there are two sections and half of it's just gone. There's just no sidewalk there at all. I'll send you the pictures for that. And the other is just I attended the Mike Welly's presentation on Monday with the mayor as part of our ongoing Juneteenth and Freedom celebration, and it was amazing. There's another presentation with a Q&A tomorrow evening. That's Wednesday, the 30th. And Mike will actually be there to do some of the Q&A after the event. So I encourage everyone to go to the town's website and sign up. It was really fascinating, the North Carolina ties to things, and encourage everyone to show up. Thank you, sir.
I would echo that.
Mr. Mayor, before you adjust to the opposite side, one more thing I'd like to add. And I was taking a little tour around town last night, and I noticed something about Amazon, and just noticed trucks are beginning to slide back into places they should not slide back into. So just wanted to make the town aware of that, that they are going back to their old ways.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vance. See, Mr. Manager is making note of that. We'll talk with.
Yes. And if I may, while we're talking about the Mike Wiley, just to continue on with that, I just wanted to give some information about it. As Councilmember Dellinger said, the streams are scheduled for Wednesday at 7, Thursday at 6, and Friday at 7. And it's called The Fire of Freedom. It's the story of a North Carolina and American hero, Abraham Galloway, who was a formerly enslaved person who became a Union spy during the Civil War. And then Mr. Dellinger said Mike Wiley will participate in a live Q&A after the Wednesday's broadcast of the show. You can learn more and pre-register at garnernc.gov. So.
Yeah, and again, I would agree that it's an inspiring sort of performance by Mr. Wiley, a one-man show, I guess you'd call it. And I had not seen or heard from him before, but I understand he's done some other things that are quite impressive. So I encourage all council members and all the public who are out there to see this. I think it's both informative and entertaining for sure. Mr. Singleton.
Question that Mr. Dellinger brought up about the sidewalk. You explain it again, David. You said somewhere between Lowe's Food and Hearth Drive, 2 sections of sidewalk have been taken up?
Yeah. So if the sidewalk goes like this, there are 2 sort of sections, and then half of each of those sections, there's just no sidewalk there anymore.
I mean, it's been removed. What you sidewalk with a guardrail? You're saying the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what's happened.
Could be the utility contractors.
Contractors out right now doing. They did right here in front of town hall, and they're working on this one this morning. They're going out and they're redoing the sidewalk, and what they're doing is pouring the concrete all the way to the curb for the bus stops. They don't want the grass in between it because people wear on it, they can fall on it, slip on it, whatever. So they're redoing all the bus stops. If you go back tonight, if you look at Lakeside and Amersboro, that one's dug up. There's no sidewalk. No, they poured the sidewalk there. The truck was there. They had it closed. So that's what they're doing is they're digging up the sidewalk sections and then taking it all the way to the curb so it's solid and there's no grass strip in between.
There's one right across the street.
Yeah.
From Town Hall here.
This has a guardrail though.
Yeah,
So
well,
I don't think it's a bus stop.
no.
I'll show you the pictures later. But I know the sections you're talking about. I didn't know that's what they were doing. But
And we do have some areas where
This one over here, they've done Amersboro Lakeside. I'm assuming they're going on Pool Drive. I go by there every day with work because that strip is very wide. And they're making them solid. In Raleigh, if you go down Garner Road, they put in 2 new bus stops close to Crosslink and Rush Street where the intersections are, where they're putting in the big, nice, fancy covers. They did them, they've done 2 or 3 right in that area. So, but that's, when you mentioned the sidewalk, made me think you can show me the picture. I want to see that. That's interesting how it disappeared. But some contractors going around, and I'm assuming that they want it to be one solid piece of concrete, because if you got a narrow piece of grass and a narrow piece of concrete, it's going to crack. So I'm assuming what happens when you assume. The item I had is just look forward to July 3rd. Been following the weather, talking about some rain Friday night and Saturday morning. We'll see what happens. But it's only supposed to be 81 instead of 96, or whatever, like it was a few years ago, or 98 when it was out there one year when we were cooking. But anyway, look forward to it. I've had numerous people ask about it. Looking forward to getting out, and I'm assuming they're going to go or they're going to walk or whatever. So hopefully we'll have good weather. If it's good weather, we're supposed to give the mayor credit for it, as Mayor Wardlaw used to say.
Just bad weather, I'll blame the council.
That's right. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mr. Matthews.
I was going to comment on that too, that I was telling somebody, like everybody else, I'm getting phone calls and texts, is it really going to happen? I said, yeah, Garner is open for business, and this is going to be the grand opening. And I really anticipate a large turnout for this event, because we've had it in the past and everybody's been shut up, and this is going to be a good deal. And I think we made a wise decision, really open this thing up, and like we're doing, I think this is going to kind of set the standard for a few months later on. We'll have that wonderful Christmas parade back and Fireman's Day and all those wonderful events that we're back where we need to be. So looking forward to being down there. I think it's going to be a great turnout, and appreciate our new Parks and Recs director back there. She'll have fun with this one. So welcome to Garner.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And council, you probably have noted some instructions attached to this at your desk here to sort of alert you to where you need to be at what time. So, you see what I'm saying, be there and don't be late. At any rate, we will try to stick with this schedule. There will be some opening remarks, and I believe, as the council had suggested, the intent is to have a chance to read the proclamation, the Juneteenth proclamation, so part of it as well. Okay, I don't think I was going to mention this and make sure everybody here and in the public is aware of this, and I'm sure they are. So with that, council, I believe we've covered our regular agenda. So I will entertain a motion at this point that we go into closed session. Guess we need the site for both of those items. One is listed here, I believe, right?
Yes,
Yes.
the other one is subsection A3.
And Mr. Mayor, I move we go into closed session for items 143-318-11, subsection A, subsection 3 for regarding potential litigation, and subset A, subset 6 to discuss qualifications, competence, conditions of an individual public officer or employee.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Matthews. Motion made, properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and it is approved, and I'm going to declare that we'll go out of public session and go into closed session. Okay. Okay, I want to pronounce that the council is back in open session. The council went into closed session to confer with our town attorney in regards to a legal matter and received a report in regards to the same. We also spent some time with a personnel evaluation and completed that process in an orderly fashion. I believe that covers all of the things, unless council has anything else. At this point, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn this particular meeting.
So moved.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and it's so ordered. Declare this work session of the town council to be completely ended.